find the chat tends to work a bit better. So we'll go ahead and Brianna, take it away.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Flory, thanks again for inviting us to be here with you today. We're excited to be able to share information and mostly answer questions for your members and today's participants. So as Flory said, this is really intended to give you the information that you all need for your businesses. So I invite you to ask questions throughout the webinar. We will share lots of information with you. We often get asked, will the deck be shared? And yes, the deck, a copy of this presentation will be sent out to each of you. It does include a number of links for where to apply to different programs, how to access additional information, and so on. So we encourage you to take advantage of the links in there, and hopefully it helps you access more of the information that you need after today's session as well. Just a little bit of housekeeping as well. Please don't use the question and answer feature. We will ask that you share your questions directly in the chat. You can either share them just with Flory and myself to the panelists, or you can share them with everybody. We will answer every question. Some questions, if they're very specific to your business and require more information, we'll invite you to schedule some time directly with our team of HR specialists one-on-one following today's webinar, or to email us with your questions as well. So without further ado, we'll jump into it. So in terms of topic coverage, so a quick overview into us. We deliver HR recruitment and employer branding support to companies across North America. We're headquartered here in Vancouver, but also have offices across the country to support businesses of every shape and size, whether it's through times of growth or like now in times of crisis, and then everything in between. More specifically, disclaimer for you all that we are HR, but we are not lawyers. So when you make decisions around things like layoffs, we always encourage you to verify with your legal counsel. This is especially important right now because, as you've all undoubtedly experienced, information is changing at an unbelievably rapid rate. We've had different information on a daily basis, sometimes hourly. So we always encourage you to revisit the sources of information and see if anything's changed, particularly around different government programs. For example, one of the most popular ones, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, which provides income support to individuals, just had a new change announced this morning. So it changes incredibly quickly. And as a result, we do recommend that you always go back to the source, and that before you make significant business decisions to help manage your risk, you're always verifying that with your legal team. A quick note as well, I did already mention that sometimes we won't be able to answer your question in depth today. However, we are offering free consultations for anyone that participates today in this webinar. So another benefit brought to you by your Chamber of Commerce, and you're welcome to book that time directly with our HR specialists. We will let you know as we go through this if your topic or question does require more in-depth discussion, and we'll provide you, again, with the link to book some time with us directly in both this deck, but also in an email following today's webinar. So first of all, we're going through the stages of a crisis, and all of us are probably feeling overwhelmed. I know I've felt incredibly overwhelmed with the sheer amount of information and decisions that I'm having to make as a business owner, a small business owner as well. We're obviously going through the stages of reacting to the issues at hand, then coming up with what that response is going to be, and then ultimately moving forward to recovery, which I don't know about you, but I'm not quite sure when that recovery phase is going to kick in. I still very much feel somewhere between stages 1 and 2, where I'm reacting to all the changes, the requirements around changing my team to being remote, going through layoff decisions, accessing government support, and then it's going to eventually get to the place where we're looking to find opportunities. But personally, I don't feel like I'm there yet. And if any of you are, kudos to you. Would love to hear from you how you got there so quickly. But a little bit of just framing for that for you. Everyone's probably seen the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Typically, this is in context of individuals. It's that we need to have physiological safety, things like a roof over our head, feeling confident that we can pay our rent, pay payroll, before we can make decisions that help us move further along that recovery curve. I think that is incredibly relevant for all of us as business owners as well. And I'm sure you're all hearing it, but I want to say again, give yourself space and permission to be learning as you go. I don't think anybody has all of the answers. We are all in this, learning and making the best decisions that we can with the information that we have available to us at that moment in time. So as we're going through this recovery curve, making sure that we have the ability to fund our businesses, have our operations continue to operate, particularly if you're in anything manufacturing related, construction, how do we continue doing that in a way that is safe for our employees. And then obviously making sure we can pay rent, payroll, et cetera. And as we're moving further up this towards recovery, finding opportunities then for optimization in our businesses and what are those new opportunities that we can capitalize on. So in terms of today's conversation topics, we're going to cover 5 key areas. So the Canada Emergency Response Benefit we'll talk about, support for workers, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, loan support for employers, and then other support for employers. So that's basically how we're framing up today. Again, I do encourage you to add any questions as you go so that we can answer them as they're relevant for different topics. So quick summary for you on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. This may or may not be relevant for anyone in here, so I will go quite quickly through the information, and then we can always come back to it if you want more information or have specific questions about it. So the Canada Emergency Response Benefit was launched by the government to provide income support to individuals impacted by COVID-19. How it works, as you've all probably heard, is you receive $2,000 for every 4-week period for up to 16 weeks, which means up to 4 periods. And those run from March 15th of this year until October 3rd. You do not have to be taking advantage of it as of March 15th. There are 7 periods in total. You can take advantage for up to 4 of those over the 7-period time window, and we'll go through those in a little bit more detail. Note that this is a taxable benefit. Those funds are not taxed at the source, which means that you will receive the full $2,000, and you will have to then remit taxes on that when you file your taxes at the end of the year. And you could also, an interesting note, backdate your application for this. So you have until December 2nd to actually apply for this benefit. So if you're not applying for it in real time, but you find that you ended up being without work for eligible periods of time within the duration of the program, you can apply for backdated financial support from the government under the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So I also mentioned that there were new changes made to the CERB already today. One of the big changes is that there's been a lot of pushback to the government because one of the challenging eligibility criteria for the CERB is that you have to be earning 0 income. And that was how it was very clearly defined. There's been lots of pushback by sole proprietors, other individuals whose income has been drastically impacted, but hasn't been brought down to 0. So the government today announced new changes to the eligibility criteria that will allow more people to access it. So some specific changes announced today include that anyone that exhausted their employment insurance benefit by January 1st is now eligible to apply for the CERB. Seasonal workers who are unable to find work because of COVID-19 will also be eligible to apply for the CERB, and people who earn up to $1,000 a month are eligible to apply for the CERB. So that's definitely a good change in the right direction. Another one that I didn't document on here, but another one that's changed, we've had a number of clients who employ folks that are perhaps on a lower income bracket, and they've experienced some employees who are choosing that they'd rather receive the government federal support versus continue working and earning their minimum wage because the difference just isn't that significant. So that's obviously put lots of employers in challenging positions. Maybe it's something that some of you can relate to as well. And as a result, the government is working with individual provinces and territories to introduce changes for income top-up for folks in low-income roles, particularly focused on essential services. So an example of that is people that work in long-term care homes, making sure that they're receiving income top-up so that they're still incentivized to keep working, which is an essential service right now especially, but are also receiving a top-up to make that equitable. In terms of eligibility periods, I mentioned that there are 7. The first one began on March 15th, and they run in 4-week intervals all the way through to the end of September. So in order to be eligible for the CERB, here's the criteria. You must reside in Canada and be at least 15 years old. You must have stopped working because of COVID-19 or be eligible for employment insurance, regular or sickness benefits. You must have had income of at least $5,000 in 2019 or in the past 12 months prior to the date of your application. And you must expect to be or already be without employment income for at least 14 days consecutively in the period of which you're applying for. So that's a really interesting one and sometimes gets people a little bit confused, so I'll explain that to you. If you are applying in the period of April 12th to May 9th, you don't need to be without any income or with 0 income the entire 4-week period, but you need to have been with 0 income for at least 14 consecutive days in this period leading up to May 9th. Then you're eligible to apply for the CERB. You would receive the benefit for the April 12th to May 9th period, and then you reconfirm your eligibility for subsequent periods. And in subsequent periods, you must earn 0 income. So in those ones, you cannot work for 14 days, but you have to be earning 0. And as of now, that potentially will be that change to $1,000. So we're still waiting for final confirmation on that. Again, you cannot earn any income. This has been the biggest sticking point, and we are glad to see some changes coming by the federal government. We're looking forward to seeing that actually change in the application, and still are waiting to see some of that turnaround. Again, the government is trying to move very quickly to make sure that as Canadians, you know the support that's coming to you. But sometimes that means that they're releasing information before it's completely thought through and built out or launched in the application. So thank you all so much for your patience. So we get a lot of questions about dividend income and CERB, particularly from business owners. Many business owners whose businesses are still running are choosing to keep working in their business but not take income from their business. In that case, you are eligible for the CERB as long as you're not taking income. So if you are in receipt of dividends, are you eligible for the CERB? Yes, you are eligible as long as they are non-eligible dividends. So again, as long as you're paid out and taxed on that. So again, that goes toward that $5,000 income requirement. So many small business owners pay themselves in dividends instead of salary, which of course is limiting your ability to access certain other programs that we'll talk about today, like the Canada Emergency Business Account, which is that $40,000 loan. Again, more to come on that, but these dividends do count toward your ability to tap into the CERB. Application dates by birth month. So you probably have already seen this. Over 1 million Canadians applied for the CERB the first day applications opened. We've already seen 6 million applications from Canadians for the CERB since it opened last week. So the application process seems to be moving very quickly. They're going very much based on an honor system right now to help process applications as quickly as possible. They've also requested that people apply on specific days of the week so that they can continue processing applications as quickly as possible. So again, that is here. I'm not going to go through it. You can all read that, but please do make note of your date to apply. If you don't want to apply in your specific assigned date by birth month, then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are eligible for anyone from any birth month to apply. So how do you apply? It's very straightforward. You have 2 options. You can apply online through the CRA My Account portal. You can also log into that using your My Service Canada account login information. And then again, you can also do it over the phone, and it's a very simple step-by-step process. There are 2 phone numbers for you to call to go through that. If anybody is interested, we can actually show you what that application process looks like, because we have some screenshots that we can certainly share with you. So what information you need to apply, just quick summary, you need your social insurance number, your contact information, and the ability to declare that you are eligible for the CERB. Again, it is an honor system, so they are just asking you to confirm that you're eligible. They will be doing due diligence down the road, and anybody that is found to have misapplied or not actually being eligible will be required to repay the funds. And any additional documentation would then be required, so we recommend that you keep record of anything that you need. Any questions? Oh, I'm seeing some questions come through, so I'm just going to address those. So Amanda's question is, are employees who make less than $1,000 a month eligible to claim the CERB while still working? Based on the new changes announced this morning by the government, the answer is yes. We're still waiting on final details to come out on that, but that was one of the big changes, because lots of people who work part-time maybe earn $500 a month for an employer, but fill an essential need for that organization, were obviously unable to keep fulfilling those roles while they were claiming CERB. So yes, Amanda, based on the changes that the government announced this morning, that is what we understand to be the change, which is a really good thing for many employers and lots of workers as well. Are there any other questions in terms of CERB? If not, I'll just keep moving through. Quick note for you, payment options. You can either receive payment by direct deposit, which takes only 3 business days, or through a mail check, which does take 10 days. Again, as you all have undoubtedly heard, the Canada Postal Service is experiencing some delays, so you may choose to do direct deposit. We encourage you to do so. There are no holds on payments, which means you get access to those funds, or your employees get access to those funds as soon as they are released to them. And a reminder that taxes are not taken on the source, that they have that full $2,000 to spend, and then we'll have to pay taxes on it later. Slow past that. So other support for workers. I'm actually going to skip by this. I recognize that many of you are employers, so I'm going to skip by this, and we're going to go to starting on the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. We can come back to some of the other support for workers. So Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy is the 75% wage subsidy that you've undoubtedly heard lots about. So quick summary for you. It's 75% subsidy for employee wages for any qualifying business, nonprofit, et cetera, for up to 3 months, retroactive to March 15th, 2020. The subsidy will apply to the first $58,700 of normally earned income by employees, which means a maximum of $847 per week per eligible employee. Again, it's a 12-week period from March 15th to June 6th, and yes, they will backdate that. Businesses who can afford to are being asked to top up 25% for each employee as well. So a little bit more information for you on that. Eligibility criteria, because this has been changed a lot. It actually formally passed legislation on Saturday, which is awesome news. They sat in an emergency session and they did pass it into legislation, which is really great. So eligible employers are individuals, taxable corporations, and partnerships consisting of eligible employers, nonprofit organizations, registered charities. And note that public bodies are not eligible for this subsidy. So that includes municipalities, local governments, crown corporations, et cetera. So they are not eligible to claim the subsidy. In order to be eligible, you must demonstrate a drop in revenue of at least 15% in March 2020, or 30% in subsequent, and then 30% in subsequent months. The decline benchmark can be either year over year from 2019, so March of 2019, or if you are a newer entity, for example, then you can also compare it to January and February of this month. The government recognizes that this poses challenges for high growth organizations. So if you fall into that category, then they have offered some alternative ways that you can calculate it to demonstrate the drop in impact on your revenue. So they are trying to make this as accessible to employers as they can, and more information continues to be released on what that's going to look like. And again, we do have lots of links out to the direct government sources. They've done a really good job of providing examples as well, so that you can learn and help to understand what you're eligible for. We can also take specific questions too for anyone that might have them. So another question that we get a lot is, which of my employees are actually eligible? So as long as they're employed in Canada and are either arm's length or non-arm's length, you could even include brand new employees, which is great. So an interesting note is that the government is trying to protect against companies and very crafty business owners who might try to add all of their 6 children to payroll to claim the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. For those arm's length employees, then they do have to have been on payroll in advance of March 15th. And when it comes to calculating your amount of that subsidy is where that plays a role. So the claim periods, just for reference, are March 15th to April 11th, April 12th to May 9th, and then May 10th to June 6th of this year. And you can claim for one, you can claim for all, it really depends. You will have to reconfirm your eligibility for every single period based on that criteria of 15% drop in March and the 30% drop in revenue for April and May. In terms of actually calculating your employee wages, it's up to the lesser of $847 per week, or 75% of their pre-crisis weekly gross pay. So a question that we're getting a lot is, how do I calculate that for an hourly employee? Well, you would look at their pre-crisis income on an average basis for the last 30 days, pre-crisis, which is of course defined as anything before March 15th based on the terms of this subsidy. And then you would average that out over those 4 weeks, and that would be the amount that you would use to claim for the subsidy. So again, about arm's length employees on payroll, so if you're the company owner and you're on payroll, for example, yes, you are eligible to claim the wage subsidy for yourself, but you must use your pre-crisis compensation up to a maximum of $847 per week. So you can't all of a sudden increase the amount that you're making to max out the benefit. It is based on what you were earning before. So how to apply? If applications are not open yet, When they do open, it's been confirmed that that will be through the CRA's My Business Account online portal. Some other information for you. The wage subsidy would be claimed against those 3 periods. You have to reapply for the wage subsidy every single month. You do have to pay your employee wages first, and then you're applying for reimbursement through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. You will receive that money through direct deposit whenever possible. And of course, you do have to keep track of all of your different paperwork and information and compensation around this program. They are estimating that funds will be received between 3 to 6 weeks after you actually submit your application, although we've heard a lot of discussion around how they're going to try to expedite that timeline so money reaches employers that need it much more quickly. Because obviously, as I'm sure many of you can relate, some of you may even be in this position. If you've had your doors closed since the middle of March and you haven't earned any income, but you've now had to pay rent once, you're going to have to pay rent again in 2 weeks' time, plus you're still paying employee salaries. Many employers are simply running out of cash. So that is also where you'll want to consider some of the other loan programs that we're going to talk about next that can help you bridge that gap to get you through to when you can expect to receive that reimbursement. Some other information for people is that new businesses who have claimed the 10% wage subsidy can still claim the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy as well. If you do not qualify for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, you may still qualify for the 10% temporary wage subsidy. Seeing someone pop a question into the Q&A, I'm going to remind you to please add your questions in the chat instead of in the Q&A, and that's how we're going to see and respond to any questions. The temporary emergency wage subsidy, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, was the one that was first announced earlier in March, and it was 10%. And really, it's it reduces it off of the payroll taxes, remittances, et cetera, that you have to make to the government, up to a total of just over $1,300 per employee and up to $25,000 per employer. So this is still something that you can claim. The benefit of this one is that you take it directly off the source of the income coming out of your business. So it helps you to reduce your cash flow, spend out of pocket. So this is something that is worth looking at in conjunction with the 75% wage subsidy, and your accountant should be able to help you do that. But otherwise, we'd be very happy to have one-to-one conversations with anybody that might want to go through what you've done and what else you could be accessing. So any questions? We'll pause here for a second. Any questions about the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy? Okay, so I just opened up the question box. Tyler asked, what are the ways they will request that you prove your sales drop? I in food service can have all sales through POS. Hopefully it can be simple. Yeah, they are trying to make it very simple for people. They want you to be able to access the government support. That's what they've made very clear. If you're eligible, they want you to access it. So they are doing their best to make it as simple as possible. More information is coming out about how they're going to ask you to document and prove that. There are lots of great links that we'll offer to you in this presentation and also on our COVID-19 resources hub on our website. And you can also see more information very specifically documented there. And again, it's changing often. It changed from Friday when I looked to Monday when I looked on the website. So it is changing very rapidly and more information continues to be released. I'm looking at a question from Holly, who is saying, at the present time, I believe my business does not qualify for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, although I'm hoping that will change because I have a certain amount in annual payroll but pay myself in dividends. The total of what I take in dividends and my annual payroll are far above the $50,000, but because of how the regulations are worded, I don't believe my business qualifies at this time. Am I incorrect or has this changed? So I think you might be talking about the Canada Emergency Business Account. I will go back here to show you your eligibility criteria. So for the for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, your payroll from last year is actually not factored into the decision. It is simply about whether or not you meet these criteria. The Canada Emergency Business Account tally is the one that has a $50,000 payroll requirement, and that is the loan program. So I'll go there next to provide information about that. But based on what you shared, as long as you had payroll, you would be eligible for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. Amanda asked, is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy taxed at the end of this year? Amanda, follow up with me offline about that. We're still trying to confirm. We've read a few different things, some of which say that certain things will be taxed, others of which say they won't be. My belief and my understanding, if I recall correctly, is that the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy will be taxed, but follow up with me offline and I will confirm that for you. The Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy is not available yet. Again, it will be backdated, so you will be able to claim it as of March 15th. So you will receive funds in response to any payroll that you put out of pocket since March 15th, but applications have not yet opened. They are still formalizing final criteria as well as that application process. Pop back down here. So we're going to go through some, is there an anticipated date that this will be available? Hallie, right now they keep just saying April, and we're now very much in mid-April, so we are expecting to see applications open in the near future. The big hurdle they needed to pass was getting this passed into legislation. That happened on Saturday, so I suspect we'll see that expedite quite quickly from here. But again, things have taken a little bit of time because they're having to update all of the portals to accept these applications, build out the applications, and also agree on criteria. So we should see that open in the next week or so, or at least a better sense of timing on that. So Canada Emergency Business Account is one that we are hearing lots of questions about. So it's a great program. This one does have some eligibility criteria that is making lots of businesses ineligible. Under the current definition of the CEBA, you have to have at least $50,000 in payroll in 2019 and less than $1 million. That's a minimum requirement. We have not heard anything to suggest that there is going to be alternative criteria released for this anytime in the immediate future. It doesn't seem to be in discussion at this point in time. So this is intended for small businesses and not-for-profit organizations who have experienced revenue impact because of COVID-19. This one's administered directly to your financial institution. We learned yesterday in another webinar run by financial institutions that they have zero flexibility on this criteria. They cannot even accept your application or help you access the online portal if you do not meet this criteria. So there is no flexibility on their end. They've been given zero latitude. The interest-free loan itself is great for those of you that are eligible for it. It's $40,000 interest-free if you pay by December 31st, 2022. And if you do pay by then 25% of that loan, so up to $10,000, will also be forgivable. So it then becomes treated like a grant for your business, which is obviously a significant benefit. And of course, provides you with important cash flow to help with operational expenses so you can keep your business running during this period of time while we're waiting on some of the other things like the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy to kick in. Okay, awesome. So there's another great program through Export Development Canada, and it's a loan guarantee for small and medium enterprises. So they will guarantee credit and term loans up to $6.25 million. And again, it's specifically meant for small and medium businesses and applies to companies in the export sector as well as domestic organizations. They're expecting the applications to open literally any day. And in order to be eligible for these, you will contact your financial institution. Again, these all provide links for you to access more information about these. We also have the co-lending program for small and medium enterprises through the Business Development Bank of Canada, which provides incremental term loans up to $6.25 million, again, meant for small and medium enterprises. And you have to have been financially viable before COVID-19 in order to be eligible for this. So we recommend that you get in touch and explore some of that criteria directly if that's something that interests you. So other support for employers. Work sharing is a program that many organizations are taking advantage of. This may or may not be relevant for you. In order to be eligible, you have to have multiple employees in the same department and or doing a similar job because they have to be able to share work. It's a great program if you do meet that criteria. Typically, this is reserved for certain sectors, but of course has become something that many other organizations are tapping into, and the government has increased the eligibility for this, including by doubling the duration of it. It formerly was 38 weeks. Now you can take advantage of it for 76 weeks, and it provides you as the employer up to $900 in benefit in partnership with your employee. It is a joint benefit program for up to 76 weeks. It's non-repayable, which is a benefit for you. And it's eligible for anyone that's a business, nonprofit, and charities that have been in business for at least 1 year, and staff participating in the work sharing must be eligible to claim employment insurance. We're getting a lot of questions about how this interacts with the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. So basically anything that you're claiming through work sharing, through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, anything that you're claiming through the benefit would then be reduced off of the total benefit you can claim through the wage subsidy. So you can still do both, but of course they don't let you double dip, if you will. It does impact the total amount of the benefit that you can receive. Federal income tax filing extensions, for those of you that don't know, those extensions have been extended, or those dates have been extended to allow you more time before you have to file and then ultimately pay that. They've also done the same thing with corporate tax filings, again, extended to June 1st. Same thing with GST, HST, customs and duties tax filing. So they are allowing all businesses to defer until after June 30th for paying any tax amounts that will become owing between now and September of 2020. I'm going to pop back here and go through some of the other benefits for workers. Does anyone have questions about some of the support available to you as an employer? Okay, great. We'll pop back to other support for workers. So other support for workers, there is a lot of support being offered right now directly to individuals. So one of the ones, if you're located in BC, which presumably all of you are, is that anybody can also be eligible for the BC emergency benefit if they are claiming the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So this one is directly administered through the province and provides them with $1,000 one-time tax-free payment to anyone that's unable to work through COVID-19. You can be eligible to apply for this if you're collecting EI or the CERB. The Canada Child Benefit has also been increased. If you are already collecting this, you're going to receive an additional $300 per child in your May payment for the 2019-2020 benefit year. Some housing-related support as well. So lots of support being offered for BC renters, temporary rental supplements, mortgage payment deferrals, BC hydro support. So a little bit more detail on each of those for you. Support for BC renters. So again, no application is needed for this. It's just a change that has been made, which is that no rent increases will be allowed in BC effective April 1st for the duration of this state of emergency. And also evictions will not be permitted during COVID-19 unless specifically accepted. So this keeps workers safe. And again, we share this information with you, recognizing that as employers, this might not be directly relevant for you personally, but this information is incredibly important for you to be able to share with your employees, and also goes a really long way to being able to demonstrate culture, your commitment to keeping your employees safe, taken care of, etc. The BC Temporary Rental Supplement, so applications open mid-April. This one is now being administered through BC Housing. Some changes have just been made to this program, and they're very clear on who is and is not eligible for this. They've also released requirements and criteria around household income for both individuals and couples. So one of the criteria for interest's sake is that at least 30% of your income must be spent on housing, and then you can be eligible. So if you spend less than 30% of your income on housing, then of your household income on housing, then you're actually not eligible for this benefit. So they've made some changes, and this is all now being run through the BC Housing, and we provide links and information about that as well on our COVID-19 resources hub on our website with very specific information about your eligibility criteria. They're also offering mortgage payment deferrals. Lots of people are already taking advantage of this, and this is administered directly with your financial institution. Hallie is asking about the BC Temporary Rental Supplement. Is there anything similar for commercial rent? Not yet, Hallie, but this morning in his address, Trudeau did announce that they are working on support for commercial rent and that more is going to come on that. They've not indicated in any way what that's going to look like, but everyone is advocating for that very, very strongly, because obviously that's having a massive impact on so many businesses where that overhead is one of our most significant expenses. So they are committing that something is coming on that. but they have not yet indicated what that's going to be. BC Hydro is also offering lots of great support. So 3 different ways to access that, whether it's a credit to your BC Hydro account for eligible customers, whether it's bill deferral and payment plans if you do have money but you need support and time to pay, and then grants also for literally money coming off your bill, which is really great. So lots of different ways that companies and organizations are looking to support. Some other support for workers as well. So I'll go through each of these too. So federal and provincial loan payment freezes. This includes student loans, and they've put on freeze anything. And if you do make direct deposits, then they've actually already automatically stopped those direct deposit withdrawals for you. And they just ask that you don't send checks because they're not going to actually take the payment right now. So that's really great for many, many people. And during this time, no interest will accumulate, which is even better. So we're seeing that pose a bit of a challenge for some folks on things like mortgage deferral, where they're not having that same response to how that's impacting both principal and interest accumulation. GST credit as well for individuals. So there will be a one-time GST credit paid out in early May. This is going to be specifically for low and modest income families to support them during COVID-19. You're not going to need to apply for this. It's going to be done automatically based on your 2019 tax or 2018 tax returns. So you don't actually need to do anything or action that at all. Again, just like for businesses, for individuals, and this is something relevant for all of you, the tax filing deadline has been extended for us also to June 1st of this year. Finally, we've got the climate action tax credit. So this, again, will come out to folks that are eligible. No action is needed, but just so that you're aware, it's a one-time boost of up to $564 for eligible families of 4 and $218 for eligible individuals in an enhanced payment that you'll receive in July. A note for anyone that is an employer. This is super important to know. We have introduced amendments to our Employment Standards Act. One of these changes is permanent, and that is that every employee is now entitled to 3 days of unpaid sick leave. That's brand new. In BC, we didn't previously have any sick leave requirements in our Employment Standards Act. That has now been changed. There's also a number of temporary changes that have been made for job protected leave due to COVID-19. So we provide a lot more detail on our resources hub, but in summary, anybody that's taking leave for one of these COVID-19 related reasons is protected, which means that you as an employer do not have to pay them for that leave, but you do have to protect their job, very much like you would for a maternity leave. So that is being backdated to January 27th, which is putting some employers in challenging situations where if you did terminate somebody for one of these protected reasons, you actually are required to bring them back and offer them the same or comparable roles to the one that they had before being let go. So super important for you to know as employers. Any questions in terms of other support for workers or overall support for workers? Okay, awesome. I will pop down and go through some very specific examples for you. So we get a lot of examples. Okay, so based on my situation, what am I eligible for? Well, it really depends on your context as an organization. So if you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, then you should be looking into government support through wage subsidies, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit for yourself directly. If you're no longer pulling income out of the business, you're looking to maintain as much cash flow in the company as you can, because right now cash is king, then you can claim the CERB for yourself. You can also, of course, leverage all of those tax deferrals on both a personal and a corporate level. You can also look into loans through both BDC and EDC and the Canada Emergency Business Account, again, if you meet those eligibility criteria. So if you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, then these may be great ones for you to look into. If you're an established business, for example, in business since 2012, then the government support that we recommend that you look into is also wage subsidies, the CERB, tax deferrals, but also work sharing, particularly if you have enough employees in similar roles for that to be something that you're eligible for. It's a great program to look into, and I'd be happy to share more about that with you one-on-one. You can also, of course, access the same loans, but also any small and medium enterprise loans available through banks. I'm going to take a quick pause here because I'm seeing a question. Is this job sick hold valid for someone who visited family in the hospital? So Amanda, I would have to get a little bit more information from you to understand a bit more context around that. And I'd be very happy to follow up with you one-on-one. You can actually send me an email, and I'll put my email in here. I'd be happy to get a little bit more information from you and then provide some more insight on that. So startups and early stage businesses, we get a lot of questions. I'm a startup, what can I access? I need venture capital, I need funding. Unfortunately, it's a pretty tough time to be raising capital. There are still some programs that you can access, wage subsidies, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit for yourself as a business owner, and then tax deferrals, but also the BDC offers a capital bridge for anyone that had formerly been venture capital funded. They're doing matching right now, which is pretty great, and you can look into more about that program. And then also Futurepreneur, which is a great organization across Canada that provides mentorship, advocacy, financing support, resources for early stage startups and typically younger entrepreneurs. But we encourage you to look into that as well if you are eligible for any of those programs. Any questions? I know we're quickly approaching time, so any last questions before we get right up to our 11:45 window? I recognize that there may be questions that you have that you're just not comfortable asking in the context of a webinar. I shared my email address in the chat, so you're welcome to reach out, send me an email directly, and you can also book time through the link here directly into the calendar of our team of HR specialists, so we can have one-on-one conversations with you to answer any of your questions. But just kind of recapping, we are here to help as a business. We're a small business as well, and we're looking at how can we give back in a way that's meaningful for you. And for us, that's providing you with free HR consultations one-on-one, providing an employer resources hub that we are updating daily. So I encourage you to take a look at that, have tools and resources built by our team around how do I conduct a layoff, what letters do my employees need to sign, when can I bring people back, what happens when I want to do that, provide you with lots of great information through our hub. And we also do offer premium support, so if you need more in-depth support, then we can engage in a formal partnership with you, where we can work with you to develop out very specific, customized strategic plans and support for accessing grants, help you with those processes, develop out any customized tools and resources that you need in your workplace. And then our last kind of ask is to help us pay it forward. Share on social, share out the word, make sure that we're helping to reach as many people who need help as possible. We ask that you share your feedback with us. Let us know if there's anything that would have been helpful to include in this webinar that we didn't have a chance to include. Leave a review on Google if you thought this was helpful. We very much invite your feedback so we can keep iterating and improving, so we can find more ways to add value back to our community through this crisis. I'm seeing a question from Tyler wanting more information on work sharing, such as benefits to employees who wish to keep working versus the ERB. Yeah, so Tyler, definitely reach out. I think we've reached time for today, but please do reach out. You're welcome to send me an email. Again, we really appreciate everybody joining, and thank you again for the Chamber of Commerce serving Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows for having us out. Lori, we were really grateful to be here with you. Again, together we're all going to get through this, and we're so incredibly proud to see the different ways that companies are pivoting, adapting, and finding valuable ways to give back and add value. So thank you all for everything that you are doing for your people, for yourselves. Make sure that you're keeping yourselves protected and safe as well. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help.
Thank you, Brianna. It's Flory here. And again, she's sent her email, so you can reach out to her if you want. You can also send it through us as well, and we'll make sure. And I believe, just to confirm, Brianna, you said that the deck here would be available?
Absolutely. We'll send out the deck. We also recorded today's session, so we'll be able to provide that to Flory, and she can share that with you all through a link as well, so that you can access and revisit some of this information again moving forward.
Oh, I'm glad you recorded, because I was recording, but I started late, so.
All good. We are all set. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to being in touch with some of you one-on-one as needed.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.